Thank you for that introduction, Carol. As Carol said, I'm Danielle. I'm currently the Policy and Communications Officer for Alcohol Focus Scotland and a research assistant within the Institute for Social Marketing and Health. And today I'll be talking on how we can improve alcohol labels to make healthier choices. I should also say, obviously, that this research was led by Dr. Lena Novak at Caledonian University, and it was funded by Alcohol Focus Scotland. So I'll just firstly provide a brief background, kind of just on the kind of situation of labelling at the moment in the UK and Scotland, and the kind of rationale for this study, and then I'll describe the methods that we used in our findings. So, as most of us are well aware, alcohol continues to cause a significant burden on the Scottish population, and this is evidenced by the fact that around 24% of adults continue drinking at hazardous levels. And furthermore, start with the significant increase in alcohol-related deaths that have been seen in 2020 from 2019. In the UK, alcohol labels are currently not required, or currently only required to show the alcohol by volume and any common allergens that are present in the product, but they're not required to show any other information that's considered important for making consumption choices. So, for example, the low risk drinking guidelines, the units of alcohol per serving, or nutritional information such as calorie or sugar content, or any health information on the harms of alcohol. So the overall aim of our study was to explore the impact of health messaging and product information on alcohol labelling. We broke this main aim down into 3 study aims that encapsulate the 5 dimensions of health warnings. So that is attention, recall, comprehension, judgment and behavioural compliance. So the first aim was, what is the impact of the provision of health messaging and product information on consumer attention, recall and comprehension? The second was to explore what is the impact of the provision of health messaging and product information on consumer judgment and behavioural compliance. And finally, what is the impact of how this information is provided? So the content, credibility, visibility, placement and positioning and format of health information and warnings on consumer attention, recall, comprehension, judgment and behavioural compliance. So to address these aims, we conducted a rapid review. Given that the primary focus was on alcohol labelling, we identified primary studies in relation to alcohol. We also looked at the labelling of tobacco products and food, time, fat, sugar and salt as a secondary focus. So the main aim of us doing this was to kind of learn from other commodities on what has been done in those areas. For example, tobacco, where there's established labelling policies in place. For instance, over 100 countries now require pictorial health warnings to be displayed on tobacco packaging. We used 2 main databases for our search. We used Web of Science and Medline. We also consulted with key websites, so Alcohol Focus Scotland, Scottish Health Alliance, the World Health Organisation, Alcohol Change, Department of Health and Public Health England. And we also looked to key informants, so academics and those working third sector, for any relevant literature reviews that they know of or could recommend to us. So while we did look at other commodities, I will focus mostly in this presentation on alcohol, but maybe with reference to tobacco or food, time, fat, sugar and salt. So in terms of the studies included in our review, we identified 71 primary studies on alcohol labelling, 14 reviews of alcohol labelling and 18 reviews of food, time, fat, sugar and salt labelling. So I'll now just move on to what we found. So our review did find that there was mixed support for the impact of health messaging and product information on consumer attention, recall, comprehension, judgment and behavioural compliance. But this may have been a result of the fact that most of the studies that we found had different label designs and were conducted in an experimental setting. We also found that consumers' ability to spontaneously recall existing warnings varies across countries and studies, and this potentially suggests that existing policies on labelling may not be effective. We did, however, find that carefully designed labels can increase people's knowledge of alcohol-related harms and, as such, decrease population alcohol consumption. So this brings us on to what makes an alcohol label effective. So with regards to the findings on the design of labels, we found that in order to increase visibility and salience, they should make use of colourful pictograms, such as this pregnancy warning that's been used in research, or the drink drive warning in a similar format. The label should stand out from the packaging itself, so kind of like this warning, rather than just blend into the colour scheme, where when these warnings are actually present, they tend to be quite unnoticeable and just kind of be part of the packaging and not an actual warning itself. And we also found that these specific colours may also aid in reducing product attractiveness, as has been used in the tobacco field, and this may also be beneficial. With regard to the information provided via warning labels, we found that these should be clear and linked to specific conditions or issues. So, for example, researchers found that the short-term harms, specifically those relating to violence or accidents, are particularly effective among young people. Furthermore, warnings that highlight the association between alcohol consumption and cancer would be helpful to increase awareness, particularly that this awareness remains quite low. This particular warning you can see on the right was used in a real-world study in Canada on the bottles of beer, spirits and wine. And as you can see, it kind of describes to the design elements that we kind of highlighted, that it should stand out, it should make use of colours that are visible and clear. So regarding the message tone, we found that negatively framed messages and emotive messages may be particularly effective with harmful drinkers, and may be associated with the motivation to drink less. So this included messages around alcohol consumption increases your risk of cancer. And we also found that young people may be more likely to engage with warning messages in a tone that highlights the short-term risks of excessive alcohol consumption. So what I kind of highlighted before about accidents and violence, things that happen when a lot of alcohol is often being consumed. So in terms of the product information included on alcohol labels, we found that standard drink unit information on labels may lead to more accurate estimates of alcohol content rather than just the ABV. Understanding of unit information may be enhanced when presented alongside the low risk drinking guidelines. A graphical representation of the weekly recommended amount a serving size represents would also be beneficial. And we also found that calorie information would also help healthy decision making, and aligns with information presented on other food products in the UK, where systems like the traffic light system are used to highlight the nutritional information in products. So just to kind of bring that kind of quick whistle stop tour of our findings to a conclusion, alcohol labels can positively influence consumers' attention, recall, comprehension, judgment and behavioural compliance, and have the ability to communicate health information and nutritional content at the point of purchase and consumption. For labels to be effective, they need to be carefully designed to include a combination of health messaging and product information. And key information needs to be presented in a visible and clear way. So in terms of the policy recommendations from our review, ideally optimal labels need to attract consumers' attention. So this would be in line with World Health Organization's recommendations on the visibility of alcohol labels. Warning labels need to be, or it would be ideal for them to be rotated and to present different information at different intervals. So this would be in line with tobacco packaging, for example, in the UK, where warnings are rotated in order to kind of avoid desensitisation, which is one of the main aims of that. And the effectiveness of alcohol labelling can be enforced when it's part of a wider comprehensive strategy to reduce alcohol harm. So again, in line with tobacco in the UK, for example, where we now have plain packaging, which increases the salience of health warnings, but also other messaging such as smoke-free legislation align with a lot of the warnings on tobacco packaging about passive smoking, for example. So the findings I've discussed today are published in several places, and you can find them all on the Alcohol Focus website, where they're presented alongside quite a nice little brief blog that was written primarily by Elena herself, and it just kind of provides the key findings. Be happy to share these with you all if you're interested in reading more.